Good afternoon, beekeepers and bee enthusiasts. How you doing? It's another great day at the farm, and we're hanging out. The sun's back out, so it's still pretty chilly outside, but at least the sun's out, so it's a little warmer. But we've got a great video planned for you today, and of course we'll be talking about the Natural Beekeeping Quick and Easy Equipment Guide. So a lot of people have been telling me, like, Wes, I want to get started in beekeeping. Like, give me the basics. And I think this season what we're going to be really trying to do is talk about what we need to do to get started as beekeepers. And a good video for that is like the equipment we use and the tools we use for beekeeping. Now, I'm not going into the hive model you should use or the swarm hives you should use or any of that. This is going to be basic equipment like smoker, hive tool, all that stuff. And we're going to talk about it, and it should be pretty good. So without further ado, let's break right into it. So when handling bees, there's a few tools that are pretty necessary for you to be successful when handling your hives. And as human nature is, there's a million different tools and techniques to do things, but in beekeeping, what is necessary to be successful is actually very simple. And the tools we're going to show you today are tools we've used every time we go into our hives. And if you're a new beekeeper and you're looking to get started, then the tools we're going to show you today are the things you want to have. Okay, so first up, let's talk about proper attire when going to beehives. And what I mean is, like, what kind of protection we're wearing whenever we go into our hives. So the biggest thing when it comes to a bee suit is kind of like I was talking about in an earlier video. You got to do what makes you comfortable, right? So there are bee suits that are a lot thicker and you're a lot less likely to get stung in, but they're also a lot hotter. They make you sweat a lot more. But there's also suits like this, which is, it's a really light mesh. And for us, this suit has been really successful. So, one thing I'll say about a suit like this is you can get stung. It doesn't happen very often, but if I brush my arm up against a bee while wearing this, I'll probably get stung and it'll go through the suit. But for the most part, this suit actually keeps the bees off of me, and we all wear it, and it does a really good job. And we got it from bugbaffler.com, so you can just go to their website and check them out. But their suit's pretty good, and the bees don't really bother me that much when I'm wearing this. And I've worn this for years now, and it's done really well. But if you're a little bit worried about getting stung, then get you one of those bigger suits. There's all kinds out there that you can go through, and I will say they will protect you a lot more, but also just remember, the more suit you're putting on, the hotter you are. And whenever you're wearing a full suit, when you're handling your bees, you'll get hot pretty quick. And a lot of people look at this and they'll say, oh, well, I'm not using that, I'm gonna get stung. But it works pretty well. And then as far as gloves go, we just use these little rubber gloves, these little surgical gloves. Bees don't really tend to sting these things very much. I don't know if I've ever been stung through one of these gloves, to be perfectly honest with you. And you can wear big gloves if you want to, but it also makes handling frames and whatnot a little bit more difficult. So you can wear these little rubber gloves and they work pretty well. I mean, like I said, the bees don't sting through it, and I can handle a frame really well using something like this. So yeah, get you a good suit, try it out, make sure you're comfortable in it, and then just based off, you can still get stung in something like this, but it doesn't happen very often. And a suit like this is really light, so we really like it. And yeah. Okay, so moving on. Next thing we have is probably one of the most important tools, and that is the hive tool. So this one's kind of beat up. It's seen a lot of wear. We've used this thing forever. But a hive tool is necessary when going through your frames and prying frames and pulling frames out and stuff like that, because you'd be surprised that propolis and stuff the bees will put in there to make those frames stick. It can be really difficult to take them out unless you have a tool like this, a hive tool, where you can pry open the frame or pull a frame up like I do. Like when we go into our swarm hives, it's filled with frames, and so I have to basically stick this in between frames and pry it up and pull the frame out. And if I didn't have this tool, my life would be very difficult. So you can be sure anytime going into the beehives, I definitely have a hive tool on hand. Get you a nice one, get you a really good hive tool. There's all kinds of different brands you can get. This one's done pretty well. But yeah, hive tool is absolutely necessary, and you should definitely have it when keeping bees. Okay, next thing on our list, we of course have the smoker. Ooh, this is what everybody associates beekeeping with, the smoker. So the smoker is an important tool because when bees are basically letting the hive know that you're a dangerous entity, if you're invading their space, they send out a warning pheromone, which lets other bees know, like, hey, alert, 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 there's something bad, there's an invader, we don't know what it is. So the smoke, what it does is it masks that pheromone, and it gets that pheromone out of there, so the bees are a lot more calm. You can get a smoker in a lot of places, but one big thing I want to talk to you about is like how you use your smoker. So this smoker, or any smoker, when handling bees, I see a lot of people just dump smoke into their beehives and go crazy and just pump smoke into their beehives. And that's not necessary unless you're dealing with like extremely aggressive bees, but it's not necessary for the most part. But what you also have to remember is when you pump smoke into your beehives, the bees think there's a fire. And so they start to get ready to possibly leave if they think there's a fire going on. And a lot of times your queen can hop off the frame and be on the bottom of the hive when you're going through. And so when you're smoking, you just have to be aware of that. Like when I'm handling our swarm hives, I don't dump smoke into the swarm hive because I want the queen to stay on the frame when I transfer the frame from the swarm hive to the main hive. So I don't dump smoke into the swarm hive. What I do, or what we do, is we keep the smoker on hand, and pretty much when bees get agitated at you, the first thing they'll do is they'll do what's called buzzing, where they'll fly around your face and they'll flap their wings really hard, and they're warning you like, hey, get out of here. And they're letting that pheromone go. And so the best thing you can do is, if you have bees buzzing you and giving you a warning and whatnot, just pump some smoke around your face and stuff like that, and just keep smoke in the general area. And if you can just do that, then that's the best way. The only other time I really use a smoker in regards to on the hive is if I've got like a bunch of bees that are attached to a part of the hive that I don't want them to be in a certain area, so I'll give them a little puff of smoke, and then I'll use another tool, the bee brush. We'll talk about it in a sec. But I'll use that to basically, the smoke to kind of get them off the area that they're on. But for the most part, when you're using your smoker, just use it a little bit around you and get that warning pheromone away from you. And really, the bees will leave you alone. And then as long as you don't dump smoke into your hive, you won't have to worry about your bees like freaking out and thinking there's a forest fire or anything. So, use the smoker lightly, but it is a very important tool to have. We always have our smoker going, and yeah, it's a good thing. Also, one more thing I want to talk about, so I don't forget, is talking about the fuel we use for our smoker. We get these little wool cloth patty things from a beekeeping shop that are near us. Get you some patties like this. This is good stuff. It burns really slowly, and it gives a good smoke. Other things you can use is, like, if you have some old jeans you don't need, you can cut up little pieces of jeans, and that's a good way to get your fire started in your smoker. And stuff like that. Use all kinds of things, but this fuel we use, this little cloth, this compacted cloth kind of stuff, it's a really good fuel. And yeah, you should look for something like that whenever you're getting fuel for your smoker. Okay, so the last big tool I'm going to show you that's pretty necessary when handling your bees is, of course, the bee brush. The bee brush is a very soft kind of brush. And a lot of times when you're handling your bees, you might not need to get them off a frame. Like, let's say you take a honey frame out and you still got a few bees on it. You can use the brush to get them off the frame. Also, if you got places in the hive that, like, if you're taking the hive from 14 frames to just 7 frames and you got a divider board, but you got bees in the empty space, you can brush them out of the empty space into the hive area. And yeah, I've seen some people use like a feather instead of these, and that looks cool. Use whatever you want to use. If you don't want to use a bee brush, that's fine. But I would have something like this on hand or something similar to this. So when you need to move bees off of something, when you're handling your bees, you'll be able to do so, no problem. Okay, so that about wraps it up. Like I said, the tools you need to be successful are just a few basic tools, but you don't have to go crazy and overcomplicate things to be a successful beekeeper. Like I said earlier, in today's society, like there's a million different ways to do things, and there's a million different tools for keeping bees. But I'm here to tell you that the few that we listed today are what you need to have, and if you have those, you can definitely be successful. We use those tools every time we go into the hives. We have to have them. They're very necessary. And if you're a new upcoming beekeeper, that's the kind of stuff you need to get to, because it's going to help you be successful. And yeah, go out and find some good stuff. So we hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, we'll see you soon.